On today's episode, our Toughest Mudder Midwest preview with Kris Mendoza. DJ, give the people what they want.
Kris Mendoza.
This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to another episode of World's Toughest Podcast. My name is Will Hicks. You are listening to the number one rated OCR podcast in the world because of listeners like you leaving ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Thank you for reviewing the show. You are too kind. On today's show, we're going to talk all things Toughest Mudder Midwest with friend of the show, Kris Mendoza. Kris is one of only 7 men to run 100 miles at World's Toughest Mudder. He is the only person in OCR to have their own theme song. We are going to talk about the course, but we spent a bit of time talking about his song and some new sponsors he's picked up recently. Very excited for Kris as he takes this next step in his endorsement career. Stay tuned for that at the end of our talk. Before we start, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheWillHicks. You can find us on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast. You can be a part of the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Amazon, and I will read it on a future episode. Another way to be a part of the show is to email us at World's Toughest Podcast @gmail.com and share your Merrill Mudder moment. What did you overcome on the Tough Mudder course? Or maybe, what is the struggle in your life that you were able to overcome or work through on the Tough Mudder course? Email us at World's Toughest Podcast @gmail.com with Merrill Mudder moment in the subject line. And in the body of the email, just tell your story. I sincerely believe, I know that every single person listening to my voice right now is dealing with something. Some deep personal struggle. And I know everyone looks good on Instagram and Facebook, and it looks like everyone else has their act together, but I promise you, they have their own problems. It might be different than your problem. It's probably different than your problem, but they've got their own struggle that they're dealing with right now, and that's okay. The next time you are in a room full of people or at the start line at a race, at Toughest Mudder this weekend, look around and look at those other people. They are all dealing with something. I don't care if they're a regular Joe or the elite of the elite. Everyone has something. Money worries or family problems or something with their parents or their spouse or their kids or their ex or their boyfriend or girlfriend, their physical health, their mental health. I don't know, but it's okay. It's part of life, and you are not alone. Maybe Tough Mudder was a factor for you in working through whatever you're dealing with right now. We would love to hear about it. Email World's Toughest Podcast @gmail.com with Merrill Mudder moments in the subject line. And if your moment is selected, you will be a guest on the podcast. I will interview you, and you can share your story. And as a bonus, you'll also get a free pair of Merrill trail running shoes. Merrill is very supportive of the podcast. Thank you to Merrill. Before we talk about Toughest Mudder Midwest, let's talk about some Tough Mudder news. The biggest news this past week was about Sean Corvell. Sean is one of 3 or 4 people that are really the face of Tough Mudder to the community. His job, what he gets paid for, is to be the start line MC. But he's much more than that. He has visited members of the community in the hospital, and he's performed weddings for people in the community. He's flown out to see people when they were diagnosed with cancer. The value of Sean to the community cannot be overstated. This past week, Sean posted this to Facebook. Just got a helicopter ride to the emergency room. Hit a deer on my motorcycle at 55 miles per hour. Broken hand and elbow, very sore, but riding gear worked. Just some road rash on my arm. Deer is dead. They're keeping me overnight for observation because I passed out while the EMT was asking me questions. They were really boring questions. Feeling lucky. I guess I have more stuff to do in this life. Sean was released from the hospital the next day and is planning to be at Toughest Mudder Midwest this weekend. Thank you to John Hobson. John was the first person to let me know about Sean's accident. That's pretty scary. I'm glad Sean wasn't more seriously hurt. Sean, sell the motorcycle, man. Get a car. Get something really safe and boring. I'm going to put you in a nice Ford Taurus. We're going to put some money together and get you a nice Hyundai Elantra. No more motorcycles, Sean. What do you think about a Kia Sedona? Another bit of exciting news. A beloved member of the community and third place finisher at World's Toughest 2016, Morgan McKay, was in the news recently.
At yesterday's 10K race, Ottawa native Morgan McKay, a self-described elite ultra obstacle racer, broke a Guinness World Record for the fastest 10K carrying 100 pounds. So imagine everyone who's doing it. Great to finish it, but she had the extra weight added.
I can't even imagine that.
Imagine it, buddy. Thanks to CTV Ottawa for the audio. Congratulations to Morgan McKay. She now owns the Guinness record for fastest 10K while carrying 100 pounds. She ran the 10K in 1 hour and 34 minutes. That is the record. That's the fastest for a woman. It is also the fastest overall time. The men's record is 19 minutes slower, 1 hour, 54 minutes. So there was a 10K in the city of Ottawa, and Morgan signed up to run it, just like anyone else. But instead of just showing up to run, she shows up wearing a backpack loaded with weights, like plate weights from a gym, duct taped to her backpack. You know when you go to a road race, like a 5K or a 10K, and there's that one guy in your start chute that brought way too much stuff? Like you're running 6 miles and he's got gear to go for 6 hours. Even that guy looked at Morgan and said, "You're carrying way too much." Morgan ran the 6.2 miles in 1 hour and 34 minutes, carrying a 100-pound pack. That is 15-minute miles. And you know she didn't come in last either. Imagine getting to the finish line and there's a girl in front of you that just finished in front of you and she's carrying an extra 100 pounds on her back. That would crush my spirit. And I know Morgan would beat me. Morgan, you got to go easy on us slowpokes. Congratulations on the Guinness record, Morgan. We are all very proud of you. No one can ever take that from you. I mean, unless they beat your time. We have received lots of kind words from people about our last episode. Last week we had a Spartan Power Hour with Spartan CEO Joe DeSena. Mike Stefano talked about it on his Obstacle Running Adventures podcast for a minute. If you listen to Mike's podcast, can you do me a favor? go leave him a review on Apple Podcasts. He's been sitting right on the brink of double digits for a while. Someone push him over. So, about our Spartan episode. I got emails, I got texts, I got messages on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast. If you haven't heard that episode, check it out. It is the one right before this one. Season 2, episode 24, or number 82 overall. Wendell Gosh told me on Instagram that episode is the best thing I've ever done, which is very kind, but not true. One time I was doing Twinkle Toes at Tough Mudder, and I was about to fall off, so instead of falling, I jumped sideways, and I landed on the next cross piece, and I finished the obstacle. So I don't know if the Spartan episode was the best thing I've ever done, but also I have 2 kids. But really the Twinkle Toes thing, too. So are we going to do that again? We'll see. No promises. If you definitely want more coverage of Spartan Race and the Spartan athletes and Spartan Race series, let me know in a review on Apple Podcasts. That's a good way to catch my attention, a review on Apple Podcasts. Speaking of reviews, let's read some iTunes reviews. Our first review comes from Amazon. If you don't have an iOS device, Amazon is the best place to leave a review for the show. From Amazon, Sean Myers writes, podcast for everything about the greatest OCR event, WTM, 5 stars. The best place to gain insight, information, and motivation for anything Tough Mudder related, and of course, World's Toughest Mudder. Will Hicks conducts great interviews with elites about their training, real-life stories, and how to go the distance. For most listeners like myself, listening to the average Janes and Joes motivates me to better myself for the upcoming events. The podcast motivated me to go from completing 2 full Tough Mudders to doing 2 toughest and World's Toughest in 2018. Great podcast for any OCR enthusiast. 5 stars! Learn some new catchphrases and have a few laughs as well. Thank you, Sean. I do love me some catchphrases. Thanks for leaving that review, Sean. I appreciate it. I just saw Sean at Toughest Mudder South in Texas a few weeks ago. Sean was injured going into the race, so instead of racing, Sean spent about 6 hours on top of Everest helping runners up the wall. Well done, Sean. It was good to see you in person in Texas. Our next review comes from Apple Podcasts. The Goat writes, 5 stars. WTM podcast, amazing as always. You touch the personal side of OCR. I speak for a lot of folks in saying your podcast has opened the door to trying many new things and living a much happier, healthier life. Will, you are a great asset to the WTM community and to all the people you reached. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you, the Goat, for writing that review. That's Jim Campbell. Jim is the first person to get his 100X headband for 100 separate Tough Mudder events. And he's got to be getting close to 175 now. Jim, let me know your number. Whatever it is, it's ridiculous. Just so many. Jim's been on our show several times. His most recent appearance was Season 2, Episode 2. Number 59 overall, kind of the beginning of this year, January, February maybe. We talked about all the new obstacles for 2018. Another good episode with Jim was which toughest was the toughest from last year. That was with all 4 people that did all 6 toughest mudders in 2017. Season 1, episode 37, number 37 overall, if you haven't heard that one. Thank you for the kind words, Jim. I appreciate it. If you'd like to be a part of the show, like Jim Campbell and Sean Myers, you can leave a review also. On your iPhone or iOS device, open the Purple Podcast app and search for World's Toughest Podcasts. Click our logo, and then scroll down and click Write a Review. On Android, open your internet app and go to Amazon.com. Search for World's Toughest Podcast, click our logo, then click the Enable Skill button. Then you can click the Write a Customer Review button and write that review. And I will read it on a future episode. Toughest Mudder Midwest will be held in Oxford, Michigan, about an hour north of Detroit. Here is a trivia question for you. If you are in Detroit and you head south, what is the first foreign country you will go into? It's not Mexico. It's not Cuba. It's Canada. True story. Go look at a map. Toughest Mudder Midwest will start at midnight local time on Saturday night, ending at 8 a.m. Sunday morning on June 2nd and 3rd. Those are Eastern times. The race begins at 9 p.m. Pacific time, 5 a.m. London time, and 2 p.m. Sydney time. If you want to follow race results, check out our Instagram page. That's at World's Toughest Podcast. Tough Mudder should have some coverage on their social channels, but I cannot make promises for them. Toughest Mudder Midwest is an 8-hour race held on a 5-mile looped course. The man and woman who complete the most loops in the allotted time will be the winners. Here is how the timing works. The race starts at 12 midnight in one large start wave. The start line will close at 7:45 a.m. You cannot begin a new lap after 7:45 a.m. If you are already on the course after 7:45, you will have until 8:30 a.m. to complete your last lap. If you do not finish your last lap by 8:30, that entire last lap will not count toward your mileage total. Pricing is as follows. First place for the men and women, $5,000 US. Second place is $2,000. Third place, $1,000. Fourth place, $500. And fifth place is $250. The top 5 men and top 5 women will also qualify as elite contenders for World's Toughest Mudder 2018. Last year at World's Toughest, elite contender was good for the best position on the start line, reserved pit spaces, and they qualified for the bonus prize if they won World's Toughest and hit a mileage goal for that year. Tough Mudder has not officially announced the elite contender perks yet for this year, but I would imagine they should be the same as last year. Other prizes and awards you can earn include complete 25 miles, you'll receive a 25-mile Toughest Mudder patch. Complete 50 miles, you'll receive a 50-mile Toughest Mudder patch and a free entry into World's Toughest Mudder. The man and woman who run the fastest first lap, the sprint lap, will receive a green bib and a free Tough Mudder entry. Every runner who completes 8 hours will receive the black 8-hour Toughest Mudder headband. In addition to those awards, all men who complete 30 miles and all women who complete 25 miles will qualify for contender status at World's Toughest Mudder. Contender status will get you a better start line location, early access to select your pit area, and is a requirement to qualify for prize money at World's Toughest Mudder. I'm going to play a 6-minute clip from a previous episode talking about some FAQs with the rules for Toughest Mudder. If you are running in Michigan this weekend, this is for you. If you're not, or if you've heard it before, you can feel free to skip ahead 6 minutes. It won't hurt my feelings. I'm not going to read the entire list of rules. If you are running this weekend, they've already been emailed to you. Reading and understanding the rules is your responsibility, not mine. Something else I want to emphasize. This podcast you're listening to right now is not a production of TMHQ. I am not an employee of Tough Mudder. The podcast has zero official affiliation with Tough Mudder. If you listen to the rules that I am about to summarize and have a problem with anything on race day, it is on you. Not me, not World's Toughest Podcast, not Tough Mudder. You are an adult. Read the rules. I am happy to help, but knowing and understanding the rules is 100% your responsibility. If you have a problem and you're angry about it, you can email me. ignorespam@juno.com. Definitely hold your breath waiting for a reply to that email. But I do want to highlight a couple of common questions. Do I have to wear a wetsuit? No, you do not have to. But you should definitely bring one, just in case. Do I have to wear a strobe? Will a glow stick work instead? Yes, glow sticks are fine. In the past, they were kind of a gray area, and we all got away with it. But now it's official, it's in the rules, glow sticks are fine. You have to have a headlamp, and you have to have a strobe or glow stick to do the race. You won't be able to get to the start line without that. You won't be able to start any additional laps without a headlamp and a strobe or glow stick. If I need medical help, am I disqualified? It depends, but probably not. You can go to the medical tent for up to 30 minutes without being disqualified. Medical does not want to DQ you. They know about the 30-minute time limit, and they will hustle to get you back out. Here is how you can be medically disqualified. If you are transported by medical, you will be disqualified. If you are helped by a lifeguard, you will be disqualified. You can even get medical treatment on the course as long as they don't transport you, and as long as it takes less than 30 minutes, you are golden. But don't be afraid of medical. They are on your side. How much pit space will I get? Officially, they say you'll get 2 feet by 4 feet. Depending on how many people are at the race this weekend, you may get less than that. You may get none of that. But you only need probably half of that. You're only going to be in the pit a few times. Probably just 2 or 3, 4 or 5 times in the pit for 99% of you listening right now. Will not be in the pit more than 4 or 5 times. You don't need a whole flat of water. You don't need 3 wetsuits. You don't need 4 different varieties of Tailwind and granola bars. Here is a rule of thumb. If you can't carry everything in one trip, you're bringing too much. What other gear do I need? What you're required to have to run the course is a headlamp and strobe and your timing chip and bib. Other than that, that's what you need. There's obviously, you want to have nutrition. You want to have water, Gatorade, or Tailwind. Here's 2 pieces of gear that I love for toughest mudder. Blegmits and my Merrell Agility Peak Flex trail running shoes. It's too late for you to get Blegmits for this weekend. They ship from Australia. They will not get here in time. But you can get a pair of Merrell trail running shoes when you get there. They won't be open Saturday night, though, so you'll need to go there Saturday morning during the regular Tough Mudder. Go to the Merrell tent. They'll have a big orange tent up. You can try the shoes on. You can try them out. They'll have an inclined climbing wall kind of thing. And you can have a brand new, sexy pair of Merrell trail running shoes for toughest mudder. The new Merrell All Out Crush 2.0s with the BOA lace are great, but they do run like a half size big. So be aware of that. Just be aware of that when you're checking them out. When will all the obstacles open? They will open when they open. They'll probably all be closed at the very beginning, and some may open at 12:15, maybe not. Most will be open by 12:30. They should all be open by 1 a.m. That is 100% subject to change, though. That was different at every single Toughest Mudder last year that I went to. If it's different than what I just said when we get there, talk to TMHQ, not me. Or you can email me, ignorespam@juno.com. If you have any other questions on the rules, please consult the rule book that was emailed to you. Knowing and understanding the rules is your responsibility. And we're back. live. I mean live, I'm recorded on your phone. Live. Let's talk about the elites running this weekend. First, the men. Ryan Atkins will be running in Michigan this weekend. Atkins is the greatest endurance OCR athlete in the world. He has never lost a race 8 hours or longer. He has won the 24-hour World's Toughest Mudder 5 years in a row. And between last year and this year, has won 5 8-hour Toughest Mudders in a row, including Toughest Mudder South in Texas a few weeks ago. Atkins ran 45 miles at Toughest Mudder South. Atkins is your man to beat at Toughest Mudder Midwest. Here are some of the men looking to dethrone Atkins. Kris Mendoza. In 2016, Kris became one of only 7 men to run 100 miles at World's Toughest Mudder. In 2017, at World's Toughest, he ran as part of a national relay team, and his team ran 120 miles, eventually resulting in them being awarded first place. It's kind of a story, don't ask. Kris has already qualified as an elite contender for World's Toughest 2018 with his 40-mile 5th place finish at Toughest Mudder South a few weeks ago. Kris will also be our guest in a few minutes to talk about the course at Toughest Mudder Midwest. Matt Lister. Matt was one of 5 men in 2017 to run 50 miles at an 8-hour Toughest Mudder. He did it at last year's Toughest Mudder Midwest in Chicago. Matt just missed getting his elite contender status at Toughest Mudder South last month with his 40-mile 6th place finish. Evan Perperis. Evan finished in 2nd place last year at World's Toughest Mudder in the classic 2-man team category with Wesley Kerr. Toughest Mudder Midwest will be his 2nd Toughest Mudder of the year after Toughest Mudder Europe Midlands. Evan finished out of the top 5 in Europe, although he did get 40 miles. Robert Killian told me he may or may not make it. He is deciding between this toughest in Michigan and the one in Boston in a few weeks. If Killian shows up, expect him and Atkins to battle it out for the top spot. Then I would expect Mendoza and Lister to battle for 3rd and Evan to round out the top 5. Evan could finish higher if some things break his way. Let's talk about the women. Your top 2 women will be Rhea Coble and Lindsay Webster. I don't know what order they'll finish in, but they will be 1st and 2nd. Let's talk about Rhea Coble. Where's Rhea?
5 stars.
There she is. Rhea won World's Toughest Mudder last year with a women's record tying 90 miles. And she set a WTM record, men and women, by winning it wire to wire. She also finished in 1st place with 40 miles at Toughest Mudder South in Texas last month. So your men's and women's World's Toughest Mudder champions will be at Toughest Mudder Midwest this weekend. And they both won Toughest Mudder South in Texas last month. Except, here is a wrinkle. Lindsay Webster is also going to be there this weekend. At Toughest Mudder South, Lindsay finished her 1st Toughest Mudder without winning. Rhea took the win, Allison Ty took 2nd, and Lindsay took 3rd. In 2017, Lindsay was undefeated in the 3 Toughest Mudders she ran. She won in Atlanta, she won in Whistler, and she won Toughest Mudder Midwest 2017 in Chicago. Rhea and Lindsay are 2 of the kindest women you will ever meet. But they don't run to get 2nd place. I know Lindsay would rather finish in 1st than not. Texas was the first time Lindsay has ever left a Toughest Mudder without a 1st place finish. The race between Lindsay and Rhea will be great this weekend. 2 other women to watch, Chikorita and Deanna Braz. Alex Chikorita Rodania will be there. This is Chikorita's 1st Toughest Mudder of 2018. She did really well in 2017 at Toughest Mudder. She finished in third place 3 separate times, and then in fifth place another time. Her best finish was 40 miles at Toughest Mudder Midwest in Chicago. Good for third place. I really don't know what to do with this last girl. Deanna Braz. Deanna is young, early 20s. She wins the 10-mile Tougher Mudder races all the time. She has more Tougher Mudder wins than anyone else. And she does good at Toughest Mudder. But here's my deal with Deanna. She will run the 10-mile Tougher Mudder on Saturday morning and win. And then she'll run the 8-hour Toughest Mudder on Saturday night and finish just out of the top 5. If she would skip Tougher Mudder in the morning, I know she could finish in the top 5 and get her elite contender status for World's Toughest 2018. I have told her this, and we have talked about it. We talked about it at Toughest Mudder South last month, a few weeks ago. But she's happy. She told me she's not worried about winning Toughest Mudder right now. She is more interested in gaining experience. And she gets that experience by running both races on the same day. Deanna, you are far faster than me. I want to see you in the top 5 at a Toughest Mudder this year. One woman who will not be at Toughest Mudder Midwest is Allison Ty. Allison is still in Australia after her win at Australia's Toughest Mudder 2 weeks ago. She will be competing at the Enduro 24-hour race this weekend. The 24-hour Enduro is affiliated with Adrian Bijanata's OCR-WC organization. They're calling that race the World Championships of 24-hour races, but come on, Adrian. We all know the true 24-hour World Championship race. It's been going on the past 7 years. It's moving to Atlanta this year. It's World's Toughest Mudder. You knew that, right? So there are your elites. About half the time in these races, someone will show up that I didn't know was coming, or maybe it's a local guy or girl that I've never heard of, and they pop in and they finish in the top 5. If/when that happens in Michigan, don't be surprised. One of the most beloved male athletes in the WTM community is Christopher Mendoza. He finished in third place at World's Toughest 2016 with 100 miles, and his national relay team finished with 120 miles in 2017. He is a licensed dentist, an elite contender for World's Toughest 2018, and a noted rap battler with his friend/sworn enemy Keith Allen. He also has his own theme song. It's time to talk with Kris Mendoza. Let's go to the phones. Kris Mendoza, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, what's going on, 5-Star Will? How you doing?
So good. Kris,
I bet you are. I heard you love nicknames, by the way.
I love them. How'd you hear that?
That's what I heard. Yeah. Just through the interwebs,
I remember that conversation. I remember wrapping it up with, instead of a nickname, you should get yourself a theme song.
Yeah. So we should set the ground rules for this podcast right now. There will be no more saying of my name. We don't need any more of that theme song trash going around. Because I swear, Heath hasn't even run a race this year, yet he still haunts me. And it's kind of ridiculous. So what are your thoughts? Actually, wait. First off, I got to tell you this. Last weekend, I was actually hanging out with Rhea.
5 stars.
We get done with this run. We get done hanging out. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to go listen. I started driving home. I'm like, hey, I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm like, oh, cool. It's Will and Rhea. Rhea's on the podcast. I'm like, sweet. And what do you know? As she's being interviewed, all of a sudden she just keeps saying my name.
Actually, I'm staying with Christopher Mendoza.
And saying my name.
I kind of sing it in my head, that song that you play. But I just call him Kris.
And I'm looking around in the car. Obviously, no one's with me. And I'm like, this is a sick joke someone's playing on me. Rhea just like saying my name just so that you'll play that stupid theme song over and over and over.
Christopher Mendoza?
Christopher Mendoza.
But I just want to let Rhea know that I'm coming for her. And to quote T-Swizzle, now we got problems. And I don't think we can solve them. You made a really deep cut. So now we got bad blood. I'm coming for you, Rhea. Better watch out.
So you and
That's
Rhea,
pretty much all I have to say about that.
you and Rhea are both running this weekend in Michigan. Are you going to beat Rhea?
I really hope so. I really don't care, actually. I'm just saying she better watch out. Otherwise, with my lack of rap skills, it might come back to haunt her.
So
I might need to call in the boys on this one. You know what was funny is Rhea had no idea where those songs came from. She just knew the clip.
right?
So I actually had to go in and like tag her in all the videos so she could actually go watch them.
That's
It's pretty
hilarious.
funny.
So what do you think? What do you think about the whole theme song? Is it enduring or is it annoying now? Are you over it?
It's pretty funny sometimes, I gotta admit. It's pretty funny like most of the time.
You told me once that sometimes when you're out running on the course, people will just like randomly sing it to you.
Oh yeah, I sing all the time. Yeah, I would say most of the time I get a funny kick out of it. Yeah,
And
it's like keeps haunting me. It's crazy. It's people I don't even know, which makes it even funnier and also kind of strange. But
you know, Atkins has won the world's toughest 5 years in a row, but he doesn't have a theme song.
That guy's a nobody. Yeah, he's a nobody. Says it on his bib.
We have talked several times on the podcast, but I don't think we've ever talked about your 100-mile year. You're one of the 7 men that's run 100 miles at World's Toughest Mudder. In 2016, you got 3rd place overall. Tell me about your 100 miles.
Well, I could say that it was the most underwhelming 100 miles that you could possibly get, being in 3rd place and getting that 100 and still being in 3rd place. But it was actually like, for me, it was insane. It was definitely like my best race, I guess, to date. Yeah, I mean, the year before I had only hit 80 miles. The year before that I'd hit 50. And I just set out with this super lofty goal that, hey, if, the stars kind of aligned, that I would go for 100. And I trained my butt off that year. And, I kind of knew exactly what I needed to do each lap. And it was just one of those things where everything just kind of came together. I didn't have too many like big problems. And yeah, it was a pretty great year. My parents actually were crewing me that year. And the last time they crewed me was the first year I ran. And I had gotten 50 miles the whole 24 hours in 2014. And by 10 p.m. I had already gotten that 50 miles. And I told them it was going to be a little different experience this time. And I don't think they believed me until that moment. Until I started really going. And, yeah, it was a pretty awesome year. I don't know. Do you have any specifics you want to get into? Because it was just like a crazy experience for me. I never would have expected it.
I'm just thinking that, like, the guys, there's a lot of guys that, get 75 or 80 miles, not a lot, but, a handful. And 100 miles is that next big goal for them. I've heard that at 10 o'clock or, 10 hours into the race is the miles you have at 10 o'clock is half of what you'll have at the end of the 24 hours.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, that year I hit 50 miles at 10 o'clock, and that's being pretty optimistic. Not, if you have some really big problem in the latter half of the race, then obviously that's kind of going down the tubes. But, yeah, I mean, I would say I definitely, when I kind of went through like a pacing chart and kind of what I needed to do each lap, gave myself enough leeway so that those last couple laps, I was pretty much walking. It was pretty awesome. Actually, I still remember the last lap I ran. I ended up running with my friend Mike Delanty, who was the first person I'd ever met at World's Toughest Mudder. I just met him running one of my first laps in 2014, and we ended up finishing that race together. He was going for a 75, and I was going for my 100, and it was pretty special. So, yeah, and then just to get the support of all the community out there was super awesome. I like remember crossing the line and seeing Sean and just thinking, wow, it's come a long way, especially from 2 years before only getting 50 miles.
So when you finished your 95th mile, you're heading out for your last lap, you knew you had enough time that you didn't have to run hard the whole last lap.
No, yeah, I think I had like 3 hours or something, 2.5, 3 hours. It was a lot of time. So I was able to pretty much just enjoy that last lap, which was pretty awesome. And at that point, Austin and Trevor were so far ahead of me that I couldn't catch them, and the people behind me weren't going to catch me. So I was just cruising in. It was a pretty sweet last lap.
That sounds awesome. A little victory lap. Like, you got it. You can't lose it. And just got to finish it out.
Yeah, except it's a third place victory lap. It's pretty sad, right? No, it was great. I was super happy with it. But it's just funny. You don't think that if you're going to run 100 miles, you're getting third. And when it happens, you're like, oh, okay, well, it is what it is. And like I always tell myself, I go for a mileage goal more than like a position goal. I'm kind of more about focusing on what I can control, and whatever happens, happens. So,
how many miles a week were you running, like leading up to that 100 miles?
That's a really good question. I honestly don't remember, because I don't really, up until this year, I hadn't like tracked any of my workouts and couldn't really tell you. I would probably say I was running 60 miles a week, maybe, and probably doing CrossFit like 3 times a week. I don't know. It wasn't very regimented or structured. Not that my training is now either, but I kind of run when I feel like running.
Do you run with a watch or a heart rate monitor, or you just kind of go by feel?
I do have a watch with the wrist heart rate monitor, which sucks. So I pretty much run. I'll have like a specific intention in mind, but it's by feel. So if I'm going to do an easy day, I try to make sure that I'm able to kind of talk. Or I might start singing to myself in the middle of my run, which means that you're obviously running slow enough for an easy run. And then if you're doing tempo, you just want to be feeling a little bit of pain throughout the run, and kind of have different intentions with every run that I go out for. So I think that kind of helps, instead of just going out to run just to run, to make sure that you have a purpose for each run.
Do you run 5-6 days a week still?
Now I probably run, I would say 6 days a week, especially during like heavy training time. And I'll oftentimes recently this year I've started to do some double days of running. So if I'm lucky enough, my schedule, I'll either do a run in the morning or early afternoon, and then a run in the evening.
You mentioned your schedule. You have been working on becoming a dentist at the UCLA School of Dentistry. How's that going?
Well, I am a dentist. I've been a dentist for 3 years. Most people don't know that. I'm just doing my anesthesia residency now.
Okay. So you're in there cleaning teeth and pulling molars and everything?
So I decided that I wanted to focus on anesthesia. So what I end up doing is pretty much knocking people out who are going under anesthesia for the dentistry. I don't actually do the dentistry anymore. I would be able to, I'd be able to do that in practice, but I'm mainly focused on the anesthesia. So, for instance, tomorrow I'm working with an oral surgeon who's doing 4 different cases, either third molar removal or implant placement or some, stuff like that, and I'm putting his patients to sleep for him.
Is that like the put the mask over your face and count backwards from 10 kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much like that. And then 5 seconds later, you wake up.
I got my wisdom teeth taken out when I was, early teens. Late teens, I guess. And I remember that hole. They put it over your face, count down backwards. And the next thing I remember is I was at my house. I'm leaning over the bathroom sink. My mouth is open, and I'm just bleeding out the mouth into this. I have no idea how I got home. It was the craziest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. I think it's rewarding, but it's also hilarious, because when some people wake up, they just have no idea what's going on. Sometimes it's hilarious, and sometimes it's just annoying if the patient's thrashing around and just can't control them. Yeah, some people wake up really violent or go to sleep really violent. You'd be surprised.
Kris, you are going to be running this weekend at Toughest Mudder Midwest up in Michigan. We have the course map in front of you there. What do you think about Toughest Mudder Midwest?
Toughest Mudder Midwest. Well, it looks like a pretty good course. I don't know. Do you want to go through all the obstacles or just kind of like a quick overview?
Yeah, we'll maybe just an overview, and then we'll go through them one by one. Have you ever run Tough Mudder in Michigan or any OCRs in Michigan?
No. This will be my second time to Michigan ever, and I'm expecting it's going to be pretty flat.
I'd imagine it's going to be flat, especially because of all the water kind of on the south end and the east end of the course. It almost looks marshy or swampy.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what Austin was like. It felt like we were just wading through water half the time.
Although on the west side, it might get a little hilly over there on the west side of the course.
Yeah, but I mean, how hilly can Michigan get? That's my question. I don't think it can get that bad. Maybe like 500 feet a lap, which is not bad at all.
Well, let's start with the obstacles. The first obstacle on Toughest Mudder Midwest is 6 feet under.
Yeah, 6 feet under. This is the one where it's just like a muddy ditch, and then Dexter comes in and he stabs you in the back. No, I'm just kidding. That was that joke. Don't you have to like crawl up like with a net? I think that's it, right?
They usually you're in like a hole almost, and there's like a 6 foot ledge where it's either a net or sometimes there's ropes, but it's usually kind of a sloppy mess.
And you just crawl yourself out pretty much.
The second obstacle is Kiss of Mud 2.0.
Yeah, this is just like a mud pit. It looks like the first three is just kind of getting you in the mud a little bit, getting you uncomfortable. Just slow you down. Kiss of Mud and Pitfall.
Yeah, Kiss of Mud usually is a barbed wire crawl, but I don't see they've changed the logo from barbed wire to a big pair of kissy lips. So usually I'd expect it to be barbed wire, but we'll see.
Maybe Coach will be kissing us as we go through that. That'd be really nice. Really enjoy that.
The third obstacle,
just cheer us on.
The third obstacle, like you mentioned, is Pitfall.
Yeah, this is usually just like a little ditch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a little, and pretty much this is the one where you just take small steps. Don't go too fast because you can really twist an ankle on this one. I see a lot of people, especially like in Austin, who had a lot of ankle problems, and a lot of that was because of the mud and how slippery it was, but this is one of those obstacles that's always there that you kind of just got to watch out for.
After Pitfall is Pork Soda. What do we know about Pork Soda?
This was my favorite from Toughest LA. Oh, wait. That's right. It got canceled. Never mind. No, I don't know what this is.
Nobody know what this is? Nobody. The logo looks like a vomiting whale.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be like that big inflatable, I don't know, thing from a few years ago at World's Toughest. I don't know what it's going to be.
They used to have an obstacle called Beached Whale, where it was like the blobs from summer camp. You know, like where you jump on.
That's what I was talking about.
Exactly. Like the blob was like a thing where one kid sits at the end, and then another kid jumps off of like an elevated platform onto the other end and launches the first kid out into the water. Except they made us go over the side of it instead of end to end.
Right.
There might be something with that.
And then and at World's Toughest, like that thing deflated and people are getting trapped inside of it. So I think it's a great idea if they bring that back. Sounds solid. I'm really looking forward to that.
This may be your one and only time to do Pork Soda.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Right after
I'm looking forward to it.
Right after Pork Soda is Arctic Enema.
Just the classic, get nice and cold. I found it some places they really put the ice in. They really want to make you miserable. Other places it's not too bad. My advice is get through this and just start running right afterwards, because I see so many people get out of it and start walking and they're freezing. The only way you're going to warm up is just keep moving. So.
And if you're going for time or for mileage, standing at the entrance of it and staring at it is not going to make it any warmer. So just get in there.
That's so true. So true.
After Arc Enema, there's a bit of a run, and then the next obstacle is Spunky Monkey.
Yeah, I mean, it's just similar to Funky Monkey, except all the holds are a little bit different. They're kind of sideways. There's some metal sideways holds. There's some wooden holds, and then some of them are kind of false holds. So I even remember last race, I went to go put my hand into the underside of what I thought was a wood hold, and there was nothing. So I just ate it in the water. So just kind of watch out for that. But honestly, if there are wood holds, they're actually usually you can get pretty good grip on them. But then you have to do the 3 rings. So it's going to be a little difficult. I think they're pretty smart now, Tough Mudder, and they're putting Arctic Enema before that. They're getting us wet before this obstacle. It's making it a lot more difficult, which I appreciate. I think it's making it more difficult, because I think when it's dry, it's not too bad, but wet, it's definitely a challenge.
The thing about those wood holds is even when they get wet, they have a little more grip than the metal poles.
Yeah. That one's just going to be challenging just no matter what because of Arctic Enema right before it.
After Spunky Monkey is Block Ness Monster.
Ooh, the classic favorite. Just kind of go over the blocks. This is a good one to get people working as a team. I know, like, for me and a few other people, like, we can just go through it by ourselves. I think if you're going to go through it by yourself, the key is if you're not very tall, push it up a little bit and then push it down and then jump. So you kind of get some momentum to pull it back towards you, and then you can kind of just do a pull-up up it. So for those going through alone, give it a nice little push up so that it falls back onto you, and then try to jump and reach the top. So
one piece of etiquette is sometimes the elites are coming through, like you or Ryan or Lindsay. Someone's coming through at the same time. There's a big group, and just let them keep going. Like, push them ahead, get them out of their way, and let them keep racing while the rest of us help each other through.
Yeah, but I will say, like, even if you're going for time, like for me, I'm definitely going to help at least one other. If someone helped me get through that, I'm going to help the next person. And to be honest, like, I might not stay there for like 5 minutes, but I want to at least help someone if they've helped me up. Because, sometimes you'll see people who just like kind of just blaze through it. And for me, like, that's not why I run the race. I guess other people, it could be different for other people. I know it's a competition, but I still appreciate the Tough Mudder spirit. So, if you're out there, it's a long race, at least help one person. It only takes a couple seconds. So that's kind of all I'll say about that.
After Block Ness Monster is Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger. Which one is... I feel like they've used that name Cliffhanger for a few different obstacles, and sometimes it's like a natural terrain kind of obstacle, like it's just a steep mountain or something.
Yeah, and like sometimes they have like a net going up the side of a cliff, right?
Or maybe even just like a rappel down kind of thing, like a steep hill with a rope.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe that'll be the biggest hill that they have. We're just going to have to rappel down it, so... that's just going to be some sort of climbing or descending or some sort.
After Cliffhanger is Rope-a-Dope.
Yeah, for Rope-a-Dope, this one you just jump out off a platform, grab onto the rope, which is suspended in water. Don't worry about getting your feet wet or anything. Like, that's allowed. Some people think that you have to like jump high enough to not get wet. You can actually get in the water and climb up the rope and then rappel down the other side. You have to transition to another rope. This is kind of where, if you're wearing long compression top and bottom, it kind of comes in handy, because when you rappel to the other side, you can kind of just elbow hook and then hook your legs around it and kind of just slide down instead of wasting your grip strength. Again, if you're wearing short sleeve, I wouldn't recommend it. You're probably going to burn yourself, but yeah.
The rope is kind of tricky to climb, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's tied down to the bottom, it's really hard to get any kind of hook. I'm still able to kind of clasp my feet together I don't know. I think it's a J hook. I don't know the difference of the hooks, but I'm still able to kind of use my feet. It's definitely a different kind of material, and it's pretty slick. But I think that try to get a good bearing on your feet, and then just use your arms to pull up too.
The next obstacle is Devil's Beard.
Well, I think we could both agree this is the absolute worst obstacle ever.
I really hate this obstacle.
Okay.
It's just terrible.
I have never, ever had fun on this thing. I do not, like, out of all of them, like, this is the one I am least favorite of. Because, especially when they put the tires underneath it, too.
That was
all
2015 they did that at World.
Clothing caught. Yeah, all you ever do is get your clothing caught in there, and it's just annoying. Freaking hate it.
Or your headlamp. This is the cargo net. They spread it on the ground. They stake it down.
Yeah.
It's a cheap obstacle. It's an easy obstacle, and it's just terrible. I agree.
No, it's not fun. Yeah. No, they could easily put something else. Like, why can't we just have, like, the pegs that they used to have, or I don't know, something else?
Do you go through head first or butt first?
I kind of go on my, like, side, actually. It's kind of more of like a butt first, but like I lift up my right shoulder, and I kind of just let my like head follow that. So I'm kind of going sideways.
And you just got to remember to mind your headlamp because it'll get snagged like right away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I put my elbow up, and then I kind of put my head down under my elbow. So I'm trying, not to do that. Sometimes I wear a pack, so that's what gets caught for me.
Oh, yeah.
But that cheap obstacle. Freaking hate it.
The next obstacle is Kong Infinity.
This is probably my favorite new obstacle. It's like that wheel, and you're just grabbing the rings on the wheel, and then you have to transition into monkey bars after that. I personally do it backwards. I go on it backwards and kind of just wait for the rings to come down and just slowly kind of use the momentum to keep the wheel turning. Then just when you do that, it's kind of a tricky transition. Make sure you hold on to one of those rings as you turn and try to grab onto the metal. Because I know a few times I've missed that transition. I just thought I had a grip on the monkey bars and just missed them. So I think that part of this, they'll also have just regular Kong open as well, if I were to guess.
They did that in Texas. They had regular Kong next to Kong Infinity, and they kind of went back and forth on which one was open.
Yeah. So I think that's probably what they're going to end up doing. Although I heard about, was it the UK, where they kind of were opening and closing obstacles throughout the night?
Yeah.
Randomly. I thought that was pretty interesting because I think that after a few laps, it gets a little monotonous, especially if you're running 6, 7, 8 laps or more. So just like that, not knowing, I think that's a cool concept that they could actually implement, and I would appreciate, because you'd never know what's going to be open.
That kind of messes with your head a little bit too, because you're hoping it's closed, and then it was closed last lap, and now it's open again, or vice versa.
Yeah, but even if it's messing with my head, I feel like it's kind of new, so it's like keeping you at least in a little suspense. I just remember the last race after 5 hours, you're like, okay, I know exactly what's coming. Let's just do this 3-4 more times. So I don't know. I think it'd be a fun thing to kind of change up if they decide to do that here.
After Kong Infinity is Everest Mons.
It's like the Monster Everest. Yeah, they're probably going to have one really, really tall side of Everest, and then it was like the past, they had one lane or a couple lanes where they had a rope coming down Everest. That got tricky once they closed the rope side, especially in Austin. So we'll kind of see what they decide to do, if they keep both sides open, and if they let people help us up. Because I know later on in the day, they closed the rope side, and so it was almost impossible to get up the big side, especially 6 hours into a race.
The big side is I think it's 15 feet tall, which is taller than the warped wall on like the Ninja Warrior wall is 14 feet or 14 and a half feet.
And it's slippery.
And it's muddy, it's slippery, and you've been running for 7 hours when you get to it.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to admit, it made me just a little happy on the inside when Atkins told me that he couldn't do it one lap. I was like, whoa, at least he can't do something. I was like, good Lord, this guy is like an animal. He's like a machine. And he's like, oh, did you get Everest on the last lap? I'm like, no. He's like, neither did I. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's insane. That's how hard it is, everyone. That's how hard it is. You know it's too hard if Ryan can't do it.
Do you think it's too hard? Do you think they made that obstacle, it's too hard for the course?
I think that if they only let the tallest side if they only keep the tallest side open like they did the last 2 hours of Austin, I don't think that's reasonable, especially after you've been running for 8 hours. But, they could do whatever they want. I think with the ropes, that was even still pretty challenging. You'd still need help.
There's a little technique to climbing Everest, even with those ropes. It's not just grab the rope and pull yourself straight up.
Well, what's your special technique?
Oh, well,
I want to know.
Okay, so if there's one with knots, go for that one. Then you run for the rope, and you kind of pull yourself up. But when you get toward the top, you have to kind of put your back foot on top of the rope, and you kind of use that as a way to kind of push yourself up a little bit, so you can, or at least take some weight off of your arms, so you can reach an arm up to a guy that can help pull you up. Otherwise, you're just standing up there.
Yeah, like step on the rope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. The only other thing I've ever found is if the two ropes are close enough together, you can almost ladder up them and just step on the ropes on the way up. I think last year at Chicago, I found that worked out really well. But they were close enough. In Austin, they weren't close enough to do that.
It's a good trick.
So,
The next obstacle is Berlin Walls.
Yeah, you just got to get up and over those walls. I don't think they're going to have a T coming back. Sometimes they have like a little bit of a ledge that comes back on you. But I think that this is just going to be straight up and over. This one gets a lot more challenging as the day goes on or as the night goes on, and you really can't pull yourself up. So
this one to me is the best indicator of how I'm doing in the race, because at the beginning of the race, it's like, all right, just do a quick pull up and you're up and over and keep going. But like by the fourth or fifth time, it's like a struggle to get up just halfway up.
Dude, I feel like a beached whale on top of it, just like trying to roll over the wall. Yeah, by the end, it's just horrible. It's okay, don't worry, Will. Everyone feels that.
After Berlin Walls is just the tip.
It's a great one. That was horrible in Austin because it wasn't. So what it was this wooden plank that you would kind of traverse going along the side. And then there was a metal pipe and then another metal pipe further. But then in the middle, there was like a metal knob. And so you'd need to traverse those three metal pieces and then go back to a wooden traverse. Well, the problem was there was nothing securing the whole apparatus. So it would lean towards one direction. It would lean whichever way you were holding it towards you. And so you couldn't really get any good leverage on the metal pieces, and you'd usually just slip off. So I have no idea how to tackle this one. Maybe having someone on the other side of it to kind of counterbalance you can make it pretty even as you go through, but you kind of need some help. Unless they decide to secure it from the top so it doesn't tilt. I'm not sure how this one's going to go. Last time the penalty was so short, it wasn't even worth it. So it might be one of those where it's just like touch it and go.
Yeah, and at least in Texas, there was no water under it. It was over a bed of like wood chips, which makes me kind of nervous when all your attention is up top and upper body, and you're not even thinking about what's underneath you. It can make it kind of dangerous if you fall.
Yeah. So, I mean, just make sure if you do fall, kind of like good climbing technique is just don't like straighten your legs, just kind of collapse when you hit the ground and kind of roll into the ground.
Let your body take it instead of your legs.
Yeah, you don't want to be like Carlo and like break your leg or whatever the heck he did on Kong. Gotta be smart about this.
Carlo Piscatello?
Yeah, like a few years ago, he like hurt himself on Kong. Maybe he knocked himself out. I don't know. He fell wrong.
After just the tip, there's another long run, and then the next obstacle is Quagmire.
Quagmire. This is pretty much just like one of those other mud pits.
This is like Pitfall without the little holes, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This is another one where they kind of could change it, make it a little more trench-like or whatever. But yeah, it's usually just a mud obstacle.
After Quagmire is Mud Mile 2.0.
Yeah, I'm interested. It's interesting that they have this so late in the race. Sometimes they dig out the trenches to where it's just pretty impossible, but I think having the normal Tough Mudder going through the day, there probably is going to be a line or two that you can kind of do by yourself. I found in Austin there was a definite line that anyone could do, or most people, I should say, could do by themselves. But if you tried to go anywhere else besides that, it was near impossible. You'd need some help. So I would just say look for the line and kind of stick to it.
The next to last obstacle is Cage Crawl.
This is Brian Gowicki's favorite. Pretty much if you're claustrophobic, it's not fun at all. My recommendation is just fine. This is pretty much just a cage that you're laying on your back and you're looking up right at the cage. The cage is like a few inches from your face, and all you have to do is pull yourself through the water using the cage, the fence, but it's a pretty tight fit. So I would recommend actually taking your headlamp off of your head, because sometimes that will run into the fence, and then I close my eyes and just start kind of pulling myself through. I find it kind of relaxing. So
how do you make sure you don't zigzag with your eyes closed?
I usually try to find, there's usually a pole that goes through the whole thing, like a center pole, and I'll just make sure my hands are on both sides of that.
It's a good trick. Something else that I told Brian this because he hates it. You're right. He hates this. Is those cages?
Oh yeah.
Like worst case scenario, you can just stand up and you're fine. Like they're not like nailed down or anything.
No. They're nailed down. They're nailed down, and you can never get out. You have to crawl through it. You have to. Okay, wait. Maybe I'm lying, but still.
The last obstacle is happy ending, slippery when wet.
Yeah, you just, there's like a rope, kind of like pyramid scheme, and you just use the rope, climb up, and then you slide down.
What do you think of that slide on the back?
This thing is called Happy Ending, and my tailbone was sore for like 5 days after Austin. I was not happy. Not happy at all.
I had a sore ending, so.
Yeah, exactly. Not where it's not a good sore. It's just a bruised sore. And then you go into like a puddle of water, and then finish line's right there. I think the slide's fun, but usually I end up hitting my tailbone somewhere on the way down. So.
It's something about the metal on the slide. I don't know why, but like every single time my butt hurt for like an hour after I slid down.
Yeah. And then you had like 15 minutes to recover, and then you're like, great, let's go through this again. Fantastic.
So that is all of the obstacles for America's Toughest Mudder Midwest. What do you think of the course as far as difficulty? Hard, easy looking, moderate?
I think that with all of these, it's just the obstacles are going to be the obstacles. The biggest difference is going to be the terrain. In Austin, it was pretty much super watery. It was just a ton of water, which slowed us down, and really muddy, so it was really hard to run. I think that just like Austin, it's going to come down to how the terrain is going to determine how difficult this course is. And the weather might come into play. Looking like there could be thunderstorms in the morning. I don't know. So that could make all the obstacles much harder. So
let me read this.
See how that goes.
Let me read this weather report to you. On Saturday night, it says mostly clear skies, low 54, winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Sunday morning, Thunderstorms likely. High 67. Ooh. Chance of rain 80%.
Oh, okay. Well, it's going to rain. Assume it's going to rain, everyone. 80%.
How does
prepared?
Say it does rain. Say it's coming down, pouring. How does that affect your race, or how you should prepare for it?
For me, it's going to really just be about temperature. Does it get really? Does the rain make me really cold? If it does start raining a lot, maybe I'll throw on a windbreaker. Usually 5 to 10 miles, I'm pretty okay. But, right when it gets to 11 miles per hour of wind, you definitely need a windbreaker. I don't know. It just gets crazy going from 10 to 11. So, no, but, I mean, I would bring a windbreaker for sure. You might need a wetsuit depending on how fast you're moving. So, but for me, it's going to come down to how hot it is or cold it is, and then that's just going to make the obstacles way more difficult, so you might be running into a few more penalties.
For a lot of people, this might be the first time they're running in a wetsuit, and they might not realize why they need a windbreaker also. Why do you need a windbreaker if you're already wearing a wetsuit?
Oh, I mean, first of all, if it's your first time running in a wetsuit, make sure you pee in it before you get out there. That's pro tip number 1, okay? That needs to be done. And number 2,
why is that?
Wetsuit does not... Because you got to break it in. That's like the key thing. You got to make sure you run in it a little bit, get it wet, pee in it. I mean, that's why you're ready. If you go into a race without a wetsuit that you've peed in, you're just going to chafe all over. It's just going to be horrible. The wetsuit's going to retaliate on you. It's not going to be good.
Okay, good tip.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pro tip. You need to be able to do that. Also Vaseline. But anyways. The wetsuit does not actually prevent any wind from getting through. That thing, if it gets really windy, it still bites. It still bites a lot. And putting something on your head, whether it is a windbreaker, whether it is like a neoprene cap, something like that, when it gets really windy, is crucial.
What's your pitting advice? People coming into the pit, nutrition, that kind of thing.
So if you have someone crewing for you, just make sure you have like a pretty clear plan of what you want each lap. I mean, for me, it's pretty much like I change out a water bottle. I get a new like Cliff Block pack or something. Whatever you're going to do, hopefully you've practiced it already. You've used it. Also, don't have a huge dinner that night before. If anything, have a big lunch. Dinner should be pretty light, kind of snacking, because you don't want to have to go to the bathroom. And if you do, it's going to make your night a lot more difficult if you just got a upset stomach. So,
what's a good lunch? What's a good pre-race lunch?
Yeah, get a good lunch in. Not a lot of fiber that day. I'm a huge fan of like acai bowls. I know you can tell I'm from LA because that's what I really want. So, with some granola, some bananas. But yeah,
I live in San Diego, and my local Costco now has those bowls instead of the frozen yogurt. So
that's what I'm coming down. I'm gonna come visit you. We're gonna get some acai bowls. We're gonna go to Petco Park. We're gonna watch the Dodgers beat the Padres. It's gonna be great.
My favorite part of when the Dodgers come to town is at the end of the game when I'm leaving, the 2 or 3 Dodger fans getting arrested outside.
Yeah, it's because they were fighting with each other over nothing. It's ridiculous. I went to a Padres game, and there were 2 Dodger fans fighting with each other. I was like, I don't understand. I'm a Dodger fan, but I'm a fan. I just don't get it.
Kris, do you have any sponsors? Anything you want to plug?
Merrill, been a huge supporter. So I'm really lucky that they have some great equipment. I love their shoes. I love like all of their just pretty much equipment, their windbreakers, things like that. I got some great coaches. My running coach, Matty Gregg runs. Strength conditioning coach, CrossFit Carlo Piscatello. My mental fitness coach is Keith Obstacle Coaching at Keith Allen. He's a horrible coach. Mainly it's just him telling people to sing at me throughout the whole course. And obviously my nutrition and supplements coach, which is none other than Ryan Woods, because we all know he knows the most about nutrition and supplements. Oh, come on, Will. You can at least laugh at that. Yeah, come on.
Do you have any referral codes for all your coaches?
I don't have referral codes. I don't even think they have websites. You should contact all of them, though, because they will have no idea it's coming. And, I think that'll be great.
What you mentioned Merrill shoes. Are you going to run in the all-out crushes? Are you going to run in the Agility Peak Flex? What do you like?
I like the all-out crushes. There's a little less support or cushion on them, but for a race that's this length, I think they do fine. I've ran further than like 40 to 50 miles, and pretty much that's kind of like my cutoff. I would need to switch to the Agility Peaks if it was longer than that, but for anything shorter, I'm fine with the all-out crushes. Again, don't come into this race without trying on your shoes. That's another huge thing. So, but I'm a big fan.
That's a really good point. We're kind of, we're recording this on Thursday night. It's kind of probably too late for most people, but for people in future toughest, definitely take your stuff for a test drive.
Yeah, including your wetsuits. Go take it for a pee. Exactly. I'm glad you listened to something I said, Will.
Kris, how can people find you on social media?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm on Instagram. I think it's KDozo04, pretty sure. And Facebook, it's my name, which does not need to be said on this podcast because I already set that rule. So it's a name. You can find it.
What should people search for?
Christopher Mendoza. That's all I got. Pretty much. I got nothing. Just a weeping. I'm just going to go cry now. You made me sing that. It's very sad.
Kris, any last thoughts on Toughest Mudder Midwest?
No, Will. 5-star Will. I am just super excited. I'm excited to see everyone out there. Let me know if you're going. I, to be honest, haven't been doing a great job seeing who's going to be out there, but I'm really excited to see people. So, looking forward to seeing people Sunday morning and then Sunday night. Can't wait to hang out with everyone. So let me know if you're going. Feel free to say hi. Yeah, you can sing my song if you have to. Or you could just say, good job. I don't know, like a normal person. But I might have something special on my bid this time. We'll see.
Really?
Maybe. We'll see.
Any hints?
No.
Music notes?
It's based on one of the songs. So it's based on the song.
The song.
If you've heard the song that my name is spoken in, then you'll know it's me.
Christopher Mendoza, thanks much.
Thank you, 5-star Will. 5 stars. Sorry, that was my Rhea impression.
No, I got it.
Oh, yeah.
Kris, so good, man. Thank you.
No problem.
Special thanks to him for appearing on today's episode. Well done, Kris. As I was wrapping up this episode, I saw a new review come in from Mrs. Mendoza on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it next time. Thank you, Mama Mendoza, for that review. It is going to be another great Toughest Mudder this weekend. Good luck to everyone running. Do you want a tip to guarantee you'll last the whole 8 hours? Guarantee. Find the worst possible picture you have of yourself, like a before picture with a big gut. Send it to someone you trust. Tell them in writing, if I don't make it the full 8 hours at Toughest Mudder Midwest this weekend, I give you permission to put this picture on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. If I last the full 8 hours, you do nothing. It has to be someone you trust, not to do you dirty, but also that you trust to follow through if you don't last the full 8 hours. I promise you that will work. Have a safe race. Have fun. I will talk to you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.
5 stars.
5 stars.